Welcome to the Naked Wine Podcast.
Two best friends and wine. Natural and free. Skin contact sometimes. Unfiltered, never find. Organic grapes and yeast. Nice.
Hey, welcome to the Naked Wine Podcast, everybody. This is episode number 11.
Whoop, whoop. Episode 11. That was our new intro.
A new intro. I bet you can't guess what we riffed it from.
Yeah, definitely not diehard Disney fans here.
Disney fans right here. Hope you are too. Anyways, welcome back, Naked Wine Podcast. You know what we're about, talking about natty wine, stripped down of the mumbo jumbo, free of all the additives.
Yep.
Wine in its naked form, just fermented grape juice, Jesus juice. I'm gonna make a new shirt called Jesus Juice, I think
that's gonna go over great.
I don't know. I love that word, but I get a lot of weird looks. But anyway, what are we talking about on this episode, Miss?
This is a great episode because our topic is on all of the amazing health benefits of drinking natural wine and why, if you are a wine drinker and you like us, consume a lot of it,
we do.
Why you should definitely be drinking natural wines because it is so much healthier for you and better for the environment. And we have a lot of great things to talk about. And it's fun because our whole podcast is about natural wine. So we'll be able to kind of explain
the health benefits,
why we're obsessed with it.
This is for the people that are like, why? The taste is kind of funny. Is this new? Is this trendy like all the other health and beauty trends? Why drink natural? Is it really better for you? It's alcohol. You know what? We got some tidbits. So buckle up. Get ready. But first, what are we drinking?
We are going to have a delicious pet nat from Italy.
Here you go, YouTube. This is a pet nat from the producer Cantina Furlani. It is called the Alpino. What's the Italian word for sparkling? Frizzante.
Yes.
Alpino Frizzante.
Alpino Frizzante. And the grapes, I had never heard of these grapes, but
give them a try, Miss, in your best Italian accent.
Nocciola. Verdi Albara Lagarino.
Yeah, everybody's familiar with those, right?
I never heard of them, but there's plenty of grapes that I do not know of. As we've discussed before, Remington and I have over 20 plus years experience in drinking wine, but
purely drinking wine.
Yeah, no certifications yet, so we're just learning along here with you guys.
I think it's our first time having these varietals.
Yep.
They come from northern Italy, a little north of Verona. And this producer is pretty special. I generally like a lot of their wines. They farm biodynamically. They don't use temperature control. We read something crazy like they stick their bottles in the snow
in the winter.
Stop fermenting in the winter.
Yeah,
and
which is so cool.
Naturally temperature control. I mean, hey, I'm here for it.
And I love that on the front it says spontaneous fermented in the bottle.
Spontaneously fermented. Spontaneous fermentation refers to using wild yeast.
Yep.
So they're not pitching yeast or pitching GMO modified yeast like what I like to say for conventional wines. They're just using the yeast that's on the grapes and making this beautiful wine. It's imported by Selection Natural. Shout out to those guys or gals.
If you're looking for natural wine in your local wine store and you look on the back and you see that's Selection Natural, then that's like a great wine to grab.
It's an importer. You can trust them.
You can trust
for the
them.
most part. You can trust that it's natural.
Yes.
So I'm opening it. Whoa. You might have an explosion.
Chug it.
No explosion. False alarm.
Boring.
But I rotated it because it's not disgorged. There's little bits of dead yeast inside on the bottom.
Because this wine is unfined and unfiltered.
And they didn't disgorge it like normal traditional champagne. If you've had Veuve Clicquot, you never find little bits and pieces on the bottom. That's because it was disgorged.
And for our listeners, it's got a really a nice like cloudy, lemony color to it.
Cloudy, lemony, pale yellow. We don't have any certifications yet, but Miss is going through WSET level 2.
Oh boy.
So
we'll see.
We'll have to change that little line in our intro, but she might have some expert ways to dissect this wine.
I am learning a lot. It's kind of blowing my mind. It's like overwhelming but also really exciting. We're out on Remington's
we're
balcony.
Taping this on my balcony in Venice Beach.
For our listeners who just heard the cars go by.
Shout out to the homeless.
Oh, happy Pride.
It's Pride Month.
Yep. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you, Miss, for the YouTubers and the audio only Miss is wearing a rainbow sweatshirt. All right, let's taste this.
I'll smell it first.
Well, cheers and smell. Okay, fine. Smell. Ooh.
Yummy.
Teeny titch of barnyard, and I can already tell it's got zippy acidity.
So when we say barnyard, we're just kind of referring to, you can kind of like, it's not that it smells bad, it actually smells delicious. It just sort of, you can tell that maybe, you know, next to the vines, there was like a cow chilling out or something. It's very...
Or on the scientific level, it has a little bit of Brett, a little bit of mousiness, which is Brettanomyces, which I like and love a little bit of Brett in my wines.
Me too. Now let's cheers.
Okay, cheers.
I get a little bit of like stone fruit on the nose. By the way.
Hot take, bone dry, nice fine bubbles that dissipate in your mouth.
Yeah.
Stone fruit.
Nice acidity.
Nice acidity. It's not anything crazy. It's not like It's not. These aren't like a Sauvignon Blanc that's gone off like the tropical, fruit spectrum. These are clearly northern Italian varieties, which I've never had before, but they're leading me to believe that they're like a little bit of a cooler climate,
which tends to be drier,
wines. Less sugar in the grapes.
Also, you can definitely the alcohol level you can taste is super low on this, which is
11.5.
Awesome.
Maybe hence the Alpino, which I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure that means like mountains.
Yeah. Something
along those lines. So cold climate, northern Italian grapes. It's delicious.
It's really good. I love it. It's super, super bubbly.
I do like the fine bubbles, and I got all these little bits of sediment inside, which is making me awfully happy. So
yeah.
All right.
Cheers again.
Let's get on.
Oh, fun.
You have to drink after you cheers.
I was about to.
Just don't want you to have bad luck or bad sex for how many years or so.
Impossible.
All right, let's get on with the episode. So, health benefits of drinking natural wine. Now, I mean, we're no Erewhon, we're no experts, we're no dietitians. I don't want to sound snooty, but this is just this isn't 100% fact and truth, but these are just things about natural wine. And most likely why they are healthier for you, and most likely why they give you less hangovers. And you can draw your own conclusions. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah.
But let's get into it. So natural wine, much hotly debated topic. And I mean, she's in WSET, so they don't really like natural wine in WSET.
Some of them do, some of them don't.
But when people think of wine, they're like, isn't it all natural? Like,
it's
how
wine.
Can you?
It comes from grapes. Grapes are natural.
What can you add to it?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you. Have you ever looked at the back of a juice box before? You can add a lot of shit to that stuff. So it's not just grape juice after all.
And unfortunately, for anyone who has looked at the back of a wine bottle, there's not a nice little list of all the ingredients that are in there. Although some natural winemakers now have started doing that, and honestly, I have to say, I think that's so cool, and I love that, and I hope natural winemakers continue to do that, and more of them, because that's a great way for consumers who are looking for natural wine to easily find it in the store. Just look on the back, and if it shows you that it's grapes in their wine and native yeast, I mean, that's all you need.
We have some unhappy neighbors. Transparency would be. I would love transparency in the wine world, just to know what we're putting in our bodies.
In Remington, for a conventional bottle of wine, if they listed all their ingredients, how many would there be, and what would be some of the shocking things you think you would find on there?
Hold your horses, Little Miss Muffet. We're gonna get into that later in the pod.
Okay, fine.
Later, that has a little section.
Okay.
She does all the editing. I write up the stuff we're going to talk about, and if we swap, this pod would suck, because I would Google best pod. Anyway, let's not even get into it.
All right, so I'm getting ahead of myself.
Hold your horses.
But keep that in mind, and we'll do this Remington's way.
So all wine's not natural, and at a high level, natural wine is nothing added, nothing taken away. 0 wines. And back to what I love to call Jesus juice. This is wine. It's not new. This is the original winemaking style of wine.
Yeah.
From Jesus' time.
Like in the Bible, this is how they were making
This
wine.
is how they made it.
It's not.
This is how they first made it.
It's not a new idea.
No, not a new idea. It's just trending.
It is trendy. Hashtag trending.
So
right
people
now.
think it's new, like hyaluronic acid, but that's been around forever too.
True.
For your face. Anyway, let's get into the topics. Miss, give us the 4 topics of why natural wine might be healthier for you.
So just think about the things that you're looking for in like your vegetables that you're going to eat. Like let's say you're going to make a delicious salsa and you're going to get all the things to make your salsa. So first of all, obviously organic, like we're trying to eat organic. So that's great. At a minimum, you want all of your ingredients to be organic. Same with natural wine. You want organic grapes. You want them to be organically farmed, organic practices, not just in the vineyard, but also in the cellar. You want it to be free of additives. So nothing in, nothing out. You're not pumping anything in there.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important.
0.
Also, this can even go back to like how when we talk about like growing organic grapes, like you don't want them to be sprayed with any pesticides or herbicides because then chemicals are getting in there. So you want them to be using more natural ways of keeping pests away and keeping, the grapes healthy and happy. So organically farmed, no chemicals there, no additives. So for example, less sugar.
Number 3.
Well, it's important to say there'll be a little less sugar. That kind of has to do like they're not pumping the wine with more sugar to make it taste better or make it higher in alcohol, because the higher levels of sugar, the higher levels of alcohol. So obviously we're trying to not pump our body full of too much sugar. Little preservatives, so lower sulfites, sulfur. Those levels are going to be a lot lower because again, they're not trying to make a cheap wine that they're just shipping all over the world and trying to sell at a Trader Joe's and pumping it full of preservatives so that it keeps forever. Like these wines are going to be a little more delicate and meant to be consumed earlier and whatnot.
But some can age.
Some can age.
If made properly.
And
you have to have a really clean cellar and techniques in the cellar.
And number 4, and very important, is it's better for the environment.
Better for the earth.
Yeah. Yay, Earth. We
Shout
love
out
you.
Mother Earth. We love you, and we hope you can keep giving us grapes and wine for forever.
Exactly.
But we have to take care of our Mother Earth. So let's get into it. Number 1, natural wine is usually organic. It's usually organically farmed or biodynamically farmed, whether it's actually certified or not. But that just inherently seems healthier, right? Like we have this big focus on pesticides and herbicides that our vegetables are sprayed with. What do they call them? Like the dirty dozen of fruits and vegetables, the ones that get sprayed the most. They say anything that has like a peel or an outside that you eat, like a skin, like any of the fruits, like apples, you should always buy organic.
Definitely.
And same with grapes. I mean, we eat the skins of the grapes. Well, they're used in winemaking in order to give it color and give it tannin. So whatever we put on the outside of the grape is totally going into the end product of the wine.
Yes.
So the farming, it's huge. Let's support, our organic farmers, our winemakers. It's as much in the cellar as it is farming. I know a lot of winemakers source grapes, and ideally natural winemakers source organically or biodynamically farmed grapes. But I mean, shout out to farming. That is tough work. It
especially
does not
biodynamic farming.
Oh my goodness. It does not get the credit it deserves. Like whenever you shop at a farmer's market, like, and I never complain about how much anything costs just because the blood, the sweat, the tears, the rain, the snow, the sleet, the shine, the stuff that goes into it, it's like we should pay more for that.
Definitely.
So
important note though on organic certification that we like to bring up is getting that that stamp, the certified organic, it can be really expensive and it can be really tricky to get. And a lot of these winemakers, they just have small little plots of land and they are just doing the best that they can, and in their hearts they know that their grapes are organic and they're doing organic farming, and so we love that, and we still want to drink those wines and support them. So when you're looking for a bottle of natural wine, don't look for that organic stamp because very possible you won't find it. Just an important thing to know.
Look for importers. Ask the wine shop people. It's a huge tip. That's the wine shop people. And oftentimes they know the backstory, which they learn from the wine reps. Or they just are reading up on it or really in the know.
Or just
and a lot of them will say it's not organically certified, but we know they're practicing biodynamics.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
That is huge.
And sometimes the certifications are really expensive. It can cost anywhere, upwards over $1,000 to $1,500 to get that organic certification. Mm-hmm. So if your favorite natural winemaker isn't certified organic, don't panic.
Don't panic.
It could, the reason could be money and time, and they really could be practicing those things anyway.
And to kind of take us to our next thing here,
Number 2,
wine being additive free.
Mm-hmm. Natural wine is generally additive free. And why is that healthier? Why do we want less additives in our body, miss?
Because we want to look sexy.
We want to look sexy.
Yes, I got it right.
Cheers. I just cheers myself with her glass. That is exactly right. I mean, we kind of touched on this before with organic, but we're just becoming so much more conscious as consumers about what we're putting into our bodies. So why not carry that over to wine? And you can farm organically, but when it comes to the cellar, if you load it up with a bunch of shit and a bunch of crap, then you kind of ruins the purpose of buying something organic, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's an important thing with wine, and goes back to if you see on the wine that it says organic, you better make sure it's still a natural wine, and they could take those beautiful organic grapes and then pump sugar in there and put mega purple dye in there to make it look the way they want it to look.
Yeah,
and
that's acid.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with buzzwords like organic sometimes.
We talked about buzzwords in the past. But like the list of additives is so long, I should pull it up and read you like all 50 allowed additives in the United States, but it would bore you, and some of those words are just like, they sound like they're from an alien planet and you just don't want them in your body in the first place.
Really scary
words. But like aluminosilicates, mega purples, you can add that to change the color. You can add citric acid to make something more acidic.
You can pump in a shit ton of sugar
to increase its sweetness, its full bodiness, its jamminess, and the alcohol content.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty widely known, like if you are on a low sugar diet, like it's really great these days. If you're trying to be fit and svelte and healthy, you want to be careful about how much sugar you're putting into your body. So, for somebody who drinks a lot of...
What's svelte?
Svelte? Like fit. Very fit.
Like me.
Yeah, like you. So for somebody like people like us who like to drink a lot of wine and still look svelte, it's important to us that they're low in sugar. So, you wake up the next morning, you feel better about yourself. You don't have a hangover because you didn't have a ton of sugar in your wine, and you're down to hit the gym or go rollerblading.
Yeah. Oh, shout out to Venice Beach. Yeah. I put on my rollerblading, Blade for Your Life on Spotify. Give it a follow. It's got all the rollerblading hits that you love and crave. You'll find me out there on the weekends.
Remington is bumping his beats and looking fine.
So lower additives, that's why it's healthier for you.
Yeah.
But guess what else? After you farm organically, after you don't use a lot of additives in your winemaking process to control your wine and make it taste a certain standard way, there's something you can do at the very end to make it shelf stable, and that's adding preservatives.
Yeah.
And we've all heard about preservatives in meats, cold cuts like nitrates, and preservatives like just in general, something that chemically that you can add that can preserve something in an unnatural way is not what you want to be eating a ton of.
No, you don't want to do that.
So here's the buzzword: sulfur dioxide, SO2, contains sulfites on the back of the wine label.
Yeah.
Like this wine label says contains sulfites. That's because it does. We've said this before.
Natural sulfites that are just
sulfites are created in the fermentation process.
Doesn't mean they added them.
To say that.
Yeah, it has to say that.
It has to say that. But there are varying degrees of added sulfites in the winemaking process that a winemaker can choose to toss in at the end.
And I feel like there's a big debate in the natural wine world on, is it a natural wine if they are adding SO2? And if so, like how much parts per million, because that's how they measure it, is acceptable for it to be a natural wine. And there's big debate, but I think Remington and I, we don't mind it when they add a little bit, because it means that, you know, we can enjoy that wine longer. It's going to last longer, you know, once we open it. There's some controversy.
A lot of winemakers make a calculated decision to add a little bit, generally under 50 parts per million of SO2 to their wines. They can add it during fermentation. They can add it at the end. It's generally a very calculated move to either save the vintage, but on the flip side, conventionally made wines in the United States can have up to 350 parts per million.
So we're talking about like normally like a natural wine, I would say maybe like 10 parts per million.
10, 20, 30.
10 parts per million. And then conventional, 350. That is a huge freaking jump in numbers.
Huge jump. And Europe caps it at like something like 200 or 250 parts per million that you can add. So unless they know something we don't know, or they're just trying to keep their people generally healthier, or they think absurd amounts of sulfites are unhealthy, I mean, I would shy away. I mean, that's like, you know, I love my Euro brothers and sisters, and they generally do a better job of regulating food and beverage.
They really do.
Shout out to Europe.
Shout out to Europe, and shout out to all of the winemakers there that have been making natural wine for forever. And
now people are pegging them as natty winemakers, and they're like, I just make wine the way, you know, Mother Earth taught me and how I like to drink.
I watched a documentary recently, and it came out a few years ago, but it was about the natural wine making process and kind of the
was that Netflix one in France?
Yeah,
in French?
In France. And kind of about how they do it there. And it was really cool because they were interviewing the winemakers, and I loved one of them said something like he didn't really know what all the fuss was about, because we shouldn't have to call it natural wine. This is wine. And we shouldn't have to say my wine is natural wine. It should be a thing that if it's wine, it's natural. And if you're making conventional wines, you have to say this is conventionally made wine, so that he thinks it's so I just love that because it's so true.
I would love if that was the case, but back to my old example of like cold pressed juice versus juice box and Capri Sun. I mean, both will probably always exist on the market, but us as consumers know the difference. That's the difference. It's really easy to identify a fresh pressed juice versus the same juice can be in a juice box, but it has a whole bunch of other shit, and we know the difference between the two. They're labeled differently.
Right.
Wine is generally not labeled
wine
differently.
Wine is a bit of a mystery. You got to do your research.
It's like, who sang that song? Living in a mystery. Is that, it's from the 90s. Building a mystery. That's conventional wine.
Live in a church where you sleep with voodoo dolls.
Who's that? Sarah McLachlan?
You won't give up the search. I love that song.
Is that Sarah McLachlan?
Yeah, Sarah McLachlan.
She loves Sarah. Conventional winemakers are building a mystery by being so ambiguous.
They are. Yeah.
Sick of it.
And kind of shady. And I think it's important to talk about, like, no judgment whatsoever. If you like conventional wines, you do you. But just like it's good to know the facts. And if you want to keep drinking them and it makes you happy, keep drinking them. If you want to drink 2-buck Chuck from Trader Joe's, even though now they come out with an organic one, which is like I said before, definitely the grapes are organic, but then what they do to it after that is very far from.
Yeah, very far from the ethos of organic.
And so I just think it's important to be educated and know, so that
you're
you
right.
can make
no shame.
No shame.
It may come out that I'm like hating on conventionally made winemakers, but you know what? They're hardworking individuals.
Yeah.
A lot of them are either doing it because it's their passion, or they have a business model where they want to provide 2-buck Chuck to every person in the world who wants to drink 2-buck Chuck, who only has $2 to chug wine. Yeah. And hey, that's an individual. That's a lot of people. No hate on that. But just if we could know the difference, and if people were educated enough because of the transparency and the wine labels, I'd be happy. Then we can all make our decisions.
We just want it to be honest, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard right now when you're as a consumer and you're wanting to drink natural wine, you know, you got to do your research. You can't just go into the wine shop and like you can with the vegetables that are labeled organic or the packaging on your food. If you want
separated
gluten-free,
in sections in the store.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. People always ask me, what's your favorite natural, give me some natural wine recommendations. And I'm like,
I know.
That's the hardest question to answer.
It's so hard because they're hard to find in some places, so you don't know where they're shopping and what they have access to.
Yeah. Either find a good store, find a good wine store employee,
Yep.
or memorize importer names.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 bits of advice. But let's talk about our 4th thing. Why natural wine is maybe not healthier for us, but better for the planet.
Yeah.
It's better for the planet, better for the earth.
For Mama Earth.
Why? Why, might people ask?
Okay, so there's a lot of reasons. One is less water waste. So with natural winemaking, like if there is a dry year and they don't think their grapes are getting enough water, like the hardcore people will just roll with it. Like they're just going to pivot and figure out what to do with those grapes to have it, or naturally be the best expression in their wine. And so what that means is they're not irrigating, which is adding water in an unnatural way to your grapes.
They're just rolling with the climate, whatever. The 2021 vintage, weather-wise tosses at them. Yeah. They're called dry farmed grapes.
And that just means less water waste for the world.
Water waste?
I mean, in California, where we've been in drought for forever.
And we're like the wine capital of the USA, arguably. So huge drought. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and grapes don't need to be watered. Actually, dry farm grapes do. They do, because it makes their roots a little hardier. It makes them dig deeper. Yep. It's honestly, if you look into dry farming, it's better for the grapes. They need to be a little stressed. Yeah. So besides dry farming, like we talked about before, they're generally organically or biodynamically farmed, and that has to be better for the earth. We're not spraying her with pesticides and Roundup and chemicals. We're generally planting cover crops. Introducing natural predator-prey animals into the situation to control pests.
Yep.
A more natural, less harsh process. We always heard of like monocrop versus, is the word polycrop? Or basically planting a lot of different plants in an area instead of monoculture farming. And most biodynamic winemakers do that in their fields by planting like lavender and mint next to their grapevines and
cool.
And
I didn't know
like that.
That's awesome.
Let's see.
Lavender and mint.
Yeah.
And then of course, most natural winemakers are trying to have like a zero waste policy. So recycling, we know about this. We've known about this for a long time.
A lot of them reuse bottles.
Just being very like conscious about
have like a zero carbon footprint model in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going through all these hoops to farm organically, not add additives, not add preservatives, make wine in such a clean way, then finish the cycle. Exactly. And that kind of wraps it up. I mean, natural wine, people ask me why we loved it. Do we each have the same answer, like how we got into it and why we were convinced? Mine was like less hangover. I noticed right away.
Of course, for us, it was like the superficial things at first. We were like, whoa, we can drink more and feel great the next day. That's awesome.
If that's not a selling point for you, I mean, hello. Yeah.
So, of course, that was first. But then, we're obsessed with it in a bunch of different ways now. Like, we like the flavor palette better, all this other kind of stuff. But health is so important. And if you are a health conscious person and you're careful about what food you eat and you like wine, you should take those same stakes and like hold yourself accountable to also research the wine you're drinking and drink natural, healthier wines.
Drink natural, healthier wine. They say everything in moderation. Well, unfortunately for some of us, wine is that everyday kind of staple. And when moderation is not doable, and it's going to be something we're going to drink every single day. Hello, coronavirus and pandemic and wine sales and wine in our homes.
Local wine shop.
You might as well do your best to, if you're going to eat a ho-ho or a Twinkie every single day because you absolutely love them, find the less bad for you varieties, or the organic ones, or the gluten-free one, the ones from your local health food store that kind of taste just about the same, but they're slightly better for you.
Yeah.
That's how I'd wrap that up. If moderation is not possible, Remington, then go natural.
You wrapped it up just in time. You have 30 seconds left here.
Let's sing a song.
Okay. You come out at night. That's when energy comes. The dark side. No, never mind. Anywho, we love you guys. Thanks for listening. Be healthy, be happy, drink
Give
natural
us
wine.
comments on what Disney theme song you want us to sing next in our intro. But go natty or go home. This is Rem and Kendra saying peace out.
Peace out.
Drink natty.
Bye.
Cheers.